Tucker Carlson has been playing with fire recently. So much so that I'm not sure whether or not he's intentionally spewing venom into the public discourse, or whether he's just trying to be an edgelord for the clicks and likes. Just take a look at his latest interview with the editor-in-chief for The Economist, Zanny Minton.
You are critical of the government of Israel. Do you believe in Israel's right to exist? Would you consider yourself a Zionist in that narrow definition?
What does that mean, a right to exist?
The existence of the political state of Israel as
but
it
has
existed,
a right. What does that mean?
That you think it should continue in its existence as a state right now. So you do not agree with Iran, for example.
Well, let me just ask, since you asked me the question, it's fair for me to get you to define the term so I can answer it. You've asked two questions. The first was, do you believe Israel has a right to exist? And the second question was, do you believe Israel should continue to go on as a nation state? And those are very different questions. So I often hear the phrase...
Having been created as a political entity in 1948,
does it have a right to exist? Is that what you're asking?
I don't want to get hung up on the right to
no.
Should it continue to exist? That's how I define narrowly Zionism.
Because the phrase you used was devised by the Israeli government. Of course, does it have a right to exist? And so my question to you would be, what does that mean?
Why don't you answer my question? It's a very simple question.
I don't know what your question is. Are you asking, does it have a right to exist, or do I want it to exist? Do I seek its destruction?
Fine, answer it that way.
Well, of course I don't seek its destruction.
Okay,
I've already said, as you know, because I said it to you, I don't want Israel to be destroyed or have to use nuclear weapons.
We've established that you are in that narrow terms of Zionist. If that's how
I'm in no sense a Zionist. I don't want any country to be destroyed at all, and I don't want people to die, particularly ones who committed no crime, because I don't believe in killing innocents, period. That's the basis of Western civilization. Eastern civilization is a whole different view. They believe in collective punishment. I don't.
So you're in no sense a Zionist?
I don't even know what that means. Why don't you define the term, and then I'll tell you whether I am.
I've just defined it.
What's a Zionist?
That a Zionist, in my narrow term, this definition is that the state of Israel, the political state of Israel, has the right to continue existing.
The right? Where does that right come from? What do you mean? These are I'm not being a lawyer about it. I just want to know what you're asking me.
You answer the question.
Because I don't know what you're asking me.
Let's go to the
Wait,
third.
no. I think a lot. You don't want to define your question, and I don't know why. I don't know what you're asking me. I've already said I don't want Israel to be destroyed. I don't want anyone to be killed. And you've said, does Israel have a right to exist? Does it have my question is, what right are you talking about? Does Britain have a right to exist? Does the United States have a right to exist?
Look, we all know that Tucker Carlson is an extremely experienced interviewer, so he knows exactly what he's doing here. He's stalling for time. He's attempting to run out the clock because he doesn't want to answer the question. Maybe he doesn't want to offend the audience that he's built up for himself, or perhaps he doesn't want to expose how he actually feels about Israel. Either way, this was a deliberate stall, and we know this based on the way that Tucker himself never actually lands on an answer. Instead, the goalpost keeps moving. Okay, so the reporter asks, does Israel have a right to exist? It is a simple yes or no question. Tucker can't even answer that, and he tries to get her to define her terms, and then he shifts the goalpost. No, I don't think Israel should be destroyed. I don't seek its destruction. Tucker, that was never the question. That's actually a straw man argument that you're making. And then he goes from that to, well, where does the right even come from? Does it come from the universe? Does it come from God? Does it come from man? Again, he is dressing this up as a philosophical question, but it's really just a distraction from the original question. And then later in the interview, we'll get to this later in the video, he actually brings up Lebanon. Tucker, no one's talking about Lebanon here. He is doing all of this because clearly he doesn't want to answer a very straightforward question. And what is so ironic about all of this? Again, Tucker has a storied history as an interviewer. Think about this. How many times has he interviewed politicians? Senator Ted Cruz, just answer the question. It's a yes or no question. I mean, he's interrupted people he's been interviewing mid-sentence, and whenever they're trying to deflect, and he's like, just answer the question. It's straightforward. Yes or no. Is it a yes or no question? I don't want your filibustering, just yes or no. And Tucker Carlson here, he can't even live up to his own editorial standards. So again, he does know what he's doing. For whatever reason, he doesn't want to answer. And the question isn't even that complicated. Does Israel have a right to exist? It is really cynical what he did there. Oh, this language was invented by the Israeli government. Come on, the reason this verbiage even exists has nothing to do with Israel's government and everything to do with Israel's enemies, whether it's countries or organizations such as Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, all of them in their founding documents, whether it's their charters or their constitutions, have embedded in their DNA the goal to destroy the state of Israel, the goal to destroy the Jewish people. So when someone asks, does Israel have the right to exist? Basically, the question is, whose side are you on? Are you siding with these radical Islamic terrorists who quite literally say, death to Israel, death to America, wipe them off the face of the earth? They refer to us as the great Satan. Or are you siding with the only democracy in the Middle East? And it's really not that hard to answer. I mean, just imagine if a Democrat did this. Let's say the rules were reversed. Let's say Tucker Carlson was the one conducting the interview, and in the hot seat was a Democrat, say Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar. Tucker Carlson asked point blank, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, do you believe Israel has a right to exist? And let's say, instead of saying yes or no, they filibuster for the next 10 minutes. Can you define your question? Where does that right even come from? I'm not trying to be a lawyer here, but let's subjugate that question into even more questions and definitions. Everyone would know what's going on. Those two Democrats wouldn't get away with it. Tucker and his audience wouldn't let him get away with it. Yet, for whatever reason, Tucker is able to get away with it here. Look, Tucker Carlson gave his answer, and the answer was no. It's similar to being asked, do you love me? Let's say Tucker Carlson's wife asked him, do you love me? And instead of saying, yes, of course, babe, I love you, he goes, well, what is love? Where does love even come from? Does love exist as a concept? He gave his answer right then and there, and for whatever reason, he doesn't want to own it. Look, what Tucker Carlson is extremely gifted at doing is pivoting to an answer that no one in their right mind could disagree with. But there's just one problem. The question to that answer was never asked in the first place. So, for example, specifically in this case, Tucker Carlson is asked point blank, do you believe Israel has a right to exist? He never answers that question. Instead, he answers the question, should Israel be destroyed? Of course, that question was never asked, but who could disagree with his answer? I don't believe Israel should be destroyed. I don't seek its destruction. In fact, I don't think innocents should be killed. I don't think innocent civilians should be slaughtered, period. That, on its surface, is a very reasonable take. And so, therefore, if you criticize Tucker Carlson, it comes across as, oh, you're criticizing his reasonable take. But again, it is a straw man position. It's a straw man defense he's building for himself because he doesn't want to answer the original question. And so they get into this argument about the semantics of the question. Here is a closer look at that.
There was a world order built up after 1945 which suggested that aggression should not be condoned into countries, that countries with borders have the right to intervene.
I totally agree with that.
Okay.
Which is why the first thing that Israel did within 2 weeks of this war starting, which is supposedly existential for them, was take southern Lebanon, take someone else's country, as they have done repeatedly. And no one even mentions that. And so I guess I would be opposed to that because I think Lebanon has a right to exist. I thought Gaza had a right to exist. But I noticed that as soon as we started portioning rights, only one country gets them.
No, I did not say that. You're absolutely putting words into my mouth.
I believe, here's what I do believe, since you asked. I believe in universally applicable standards. And if they're not universally applicable, they're not standards, they're preferences. That's why I believe in human rights, not ethnic rights. I don't think Jews have more rights or less rights than anyone else. I don't think Christians have more rights or less rights. Blacks, Filipinos. I believe in human rights that derive from the creation of people by God.
So what Zanny Minton is doing here is clarifying that the right to exist is defined by the post-1945 international order, which says that countries with borders have a right to their own sovereignty. And Tucker Carlson got so close, he says, I agree with that, but instead of just stopping there, he then pivots to attack Israel for attacking Lebanon. He conveniently leaves out the fact that Israel is in the middle of a war and much of what they're doing is in self-defense or to prevent future attacks. He leaves out the historical context of proxies like Hezbollah and all these other terrorist organizations attacking from countries like Lebanon. And look, he collapses all of this into one issue. There are really two separate issues at play here. Does a country have a right to exist, or can a country violate another country's sovereignty? Those are two different things. You can criticize what Israel has done in Lebanon, but he's collapsing them into a single argument, and that's just intellectually dishonest. Now, before we move on, I just want to point out the blaring and glaringly obvious contradiction that Tucker Carlson made. He goes, I am in no sense a Zionist. And then in the very next breath, he goes, I don't even know what that means. Tucker, how can you say you're not something if you don't know the definition of said thing? Both of these things cannot be true at the same time. So he starts off, oh, I don't seek the destruction of Israel. And of course, what is the definition of Zionism? What is the definition of a Zionist? It is someone who believes that people of Jewish ancestry have a right to self-determination and that they have a right to their ancestral homeland, Israel, right? That's exactly all it means. So if you don't seek their destruction, then you're saying they have a right to exist, which by definition makes you a Zionist. He then says, oh, I'm not a Zionist, and then he attempts to hit a reset button. I don't even know what it means, because he realizes he's maybe offended part of his audience. Maybe he's realized he's taken a position he didn't want to take publicly, and so, oh, I don't know what it means. It's a reset. It's a way for him to play gullible, play the fool, without taking any accountability for his words. Next, they start talking about Russia, and boy, oh boy, do things get interesting. But before we get into that, I would like to acknowledge the members of today's Governor's Club. They are Bama Riddenauer, Super Romer, Jenny Renkin, and Chowet73. These are people who give tips and super thanks to the channel. I am glad that you're here, and I'm glad that you enjoy. Well, before we take a look at this next segment, just imagine if someone asked Tucker Carlson, does Russia have a right to exist? Do you think he would have played the same word game? Do you think he would have pretended to be a lawyer like he did here? No, of course not. He would have answered the question directly. I guarantee if you had asked that about any other country, there would have been no hesitation. Of course they have a right to exist. But for whatever reason, Israel, he goes on a rampage and he says, he wants universally applicable standards. I just have a hard time believing if someone asked Russia, do they have a right to exist, that he would have gone on this exact same diatribe. But that's just me. Now let's take a look at how he giggles and he laughs maniacally.
For the record, there isn't any US aid going to Ukraine. It is all being paid for by Europeans. There are some US weapons that are being bought by Europeans going to Ukraine.
I know, it's so sad. You guys are going to beat Russia. Good luck.
I think I'm sorry. I think this is too important to have to kind of giggle over.
I'm not giggling. I'm mad at your politicians. They're liars. They're liars. And when they stand up, when Keir Starmer stands up to distract attention, or Mertz too, or Macron to some extent, and stands up to divert attention from the disasters underway in their own countries, to say the real enemy is Russia, I see deception and I see betrayal of their own people, and I have contempt for that. They're not going to go to war with Russia, and if they do, they're not going to win. That's just a fact. And so don't tell your people that to take the attention away from you. That's my read.
So Tucker doesn't want the destruction of any nation. He doesn't want the destruction of innocent people, innocent civilians who have done nothing wrong to die, yet he's going to laugh maniacally at the idea of Russia conquering and taking over and defeating the entirety of Europe. How does that possibly make sense? Someone please enlighten me. I just don't get it. I just hate his laugh because it is the worst tool in his arsenal, because what he's doing there, it's very intentional here. He is laughing to not only be condescending towards the interviewer, but it's saying that this question is beneath me. It's not even worth my time. The very question, the very premise of the question is flawed. That's what he's doing with that laugh there. So it all of a sudden elevates his position without him actually having to give an intellectual or philosophically sound answer. It is disgusting, and it is a tool that I absolutely cannot stand. You notice anytime he gets cornered, anytime he gets put in an uncomfortable situation, he will do that laugh, and it's all of a sudden to elevate himself and then put the interviewer on guard. Now, she did handle herself just fine, but I did want to put a name to it, because I think if you can name something, if you can name the tactic and identify it, then it becomes obvious every time you see it. Now look, obviously you can criticize Israel, obviously you can criticize the Israeli government. Just because you criticize the Israeli government, that does not make you anti-Semitic. But what Tucker Carlson is doing, whether it's intentional or not, is he is flirting with the anti-Semitic wings of both the Republican and the Democrat Party, because there are crazies everywhere. There are crazies in both political parties, and for whatever reason, he wants to align himself with them. And he can't just state his position clearly, either because he agrees with them or because he wants influence among their circles. And to me, it's very scary, especially when you consider how close he is to J.D. Vance, and J.D. obviously being the heir apparent in 2028. I'm going to put this on the record now. If it's between J.D. and Marco Rubio, this channel is going to be all in on Marco Rubio. That won't even be a question. Now, I know Marco said that if J.D. runs, he won't run, but hey, 2028 is still a long ways away. As always, though, all of this is just my analysis and commentary. That's what's happening in the world of politics from my point of view, and I would love to hear from you. So Tucker Carlson used to be a MAGA darling. He used to be a Republican star. What do you think? Do you still like Tucker Carlson? Does his star still shine brightly in, in how you view the world, or do you see him more as a fallen star? Let me know your thoughts on Tucker Carlson down in the comments below. If you haven't already, please be sure to leave me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, but it really does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.